Would do if I let my cousin's husband move states with her without telling him she cheated. My family and I are in the midst of a moral quandary. I need to give you some context so that this all makes sense. We should immediately tell him what's up, based on the headline, but there's a lot of history here that complicates matters. First and foremost, my cousin lies about everything. She makes up nonsense tales about nothing for no apparent reason. Her BS at times is to create drama. For example, she has spent years convincing me that my partner loves her. She said that her husband had to pull him aside and confront him about gazing at her. I spoke with my boyfriend and her husband, and it never occurred, and he has no interest for her. Some of her falsehoods are intended to attract attention, such as the fact that she has PCOS, stage 3 cervical cancer since Christmas, endometriosis, HPV, and fibroids. Oh, and she's been sick with E. coli for a few days, but is still drinking booze and shopping at Victoria's Secret. Her spouse had 2 options back in February and had people assist him when she announced she was divorcing him at the time. We cautioned him that getting back with her after she had left for the second time in 2 weeks was a mistake. He didn't become angry and urge her to remain, so she instantly desired his return. He's well aware that she lies all the time. She allegedly cheated on him with one of his Xbox pals in January, but when he confronted the buddy, the man supplied screen photos of their discussions, all of which were started by her, and he just stopped responding anytime she tried to flirt. She never showed anybody the text he allegedly sent her, claiming he desired her and would treat her better than her husband. She came over yesterday and confessed to my sister that she had slept with her employer. She said so many contradictory things about her employer that I'm not sure what to trust. He allegedly called her over to chat before kissing her and beating her with his stethoscope, claiming to be the greatest she's ever had. She intends to inform her husband next week, after they have relocated to a new state where he knows no one. I want to tell her husband about it, but I'm afraid that's exactly what she wants me to do, just to stir the pot. I have my doubts that it's real in any manner, but I'd be upset if my so even hinted that they cheated on me, so I'd want to know. My partner believes that we should simply leave things alone and let them go. I see his argument that they caused their own mess and should clean it up, but I'd want to know whether she was saying that. So, Reddit, would we be jerks if we simply let him move in with her without informing him she cheated? There are a lot of specifics missing here, since it's been non-stop drama since they moved near us, and writing about it would take a book, but I can add more later if questions arise. I don't mind if she discovers this since I'm not very fond of her. Haha. This issue has really gotten out of hand. My sister informed a friend, who was possibly crazier than my cousin, who then searched up my cousin on Facebook and her employer, and then messaged her boss, his girlfriend, and his GF's kid. She has no idea who these individuals are, so she chucked a stick of dynamite into a hole and let it explode, haha. So things got a little wild. We determined that if we wanted to sleep at night, we needed to notify him. Before we did anything, my sister went to see her friend, and her friend completed everything in the first edit. So the man deleted the text from his girlfriend's phone and blocked my sister's friend on both accounts. That seemed really odd to me. We also questioned her spouse whether she had received anything for working for this person. He's a doctor after all, and she kept coming into his office and texting about her test results, and she allegedly eventually obtained a job working for him. But the truth is, she was never paid, and had been working there for weeks. So we now have grounds to suspect that this was more than just her cheating one night. It is more plausible that it was a weeks-long romance. By the way, we're neighbors, so I can see my cousin's home from mine. My partner saw her on the porch, furiously chatting on the phone. It turned out to be the man, so we invited her husband to come down to our place and told him everything. I showed him screenshots of her discussing it with my sister. I showed him copies of Snapchat messages and told him what she said to us. We advised him to keep his emotions in control and to make sure he had all of his ducks in a row before confronting her. He took her advice, made some phone calls, confronted her, and left her today. She is relying on our shared relatives to assist her with the transfer and to set her up in the new state. We agreed that kids should be aware of the facts and make educated judgments based on them, rather than whatever nonsense she concocts about it. So we phoned her mother and told her the full truth about how she had been lying and making stuff up about him, and how she had told us her mother wanted her to leave him at the doctor's office. She was enraged. We also did this when her husband was confronting her since we expected her first phone call to be her mother. It's been a couple hours, and she hasn't approached us with anything, not that I would mind that I have a few things to hash out if she wants to go there. Our family has always come to her aid when she has made a mistake, and I believe that this is more than a mistake. She was interfering with the lives of many families. She planned to isolate her husband from his friends and family, leaving him without a job, a house, or anything else. He'd have no option but to spend some time with her, and she should not deprive him of that option. So I don't mind that she blocked me. It's time to get rid of the poisonous individuals in my life. I can only hope she realizes that her acts have repercussions and that it's time to face the music. Story 2. Nephew, male 38, confronted his wife, female 36, who's been cheating on him with his father. In late May, my twin sister, female 60, learned that her husband of 40 years had not only been cheating on her, but with their oldest son's wife. There are no words in the English language that can even begin to describe the misery of this scenario. My nephew had been stationed in Germany since January and wasn't expected to return until the end of the year. That is, until his younger brother and sister flew to Europe to deliver the awful news to him in person. He quickly submitted an emergency leave request, which was approved last week. He insisted on going to the hospital to confront the man he has idolized his entire life after arriving on Thursday midday after an 11-hour flight and little to no sleep for several days after learning about the depravity of his father's actions and reassuring his sister, who'd picked him up from the base, that he would show restraint. That quickly proved to be everything, and who could blame him? My niece had brought him inside, and when they realized their father was in the or and wouldn't be done for a few hours, my nephew went wild and refused to accept no for an answer. When the receptionist asked if she could take a message, he reacted with further expletives addressed at his father, saying, "Ask him who he is. You all adore him, but I am here to tell you he's a sick son of, and tell him I told to go himself." My niece burst into tears since all eyes were on them, and many people knew who they were. As he became more agitated, security was summoned, and they were ordered to leave immediately. My niece subsequently told me the tale and expressed sorrow for caving into her brother's requests, since it was a bad idea that should never have occurred. Suffice it to say, almost everyone who was at the hospital that day is aware that the good doctor is having an affair. It's only a matter of time until the gossip rings, both within and beyond the hospital's walls, find out who the other lady is. My nephew then returned to his mother, and my sister was inconsolable from the time her son entered her home. She didn't want to show him all of the messages between his father and wife at first, but he insisted on reading them, leaving her with no option. My brother-in-law quickly heard about the ruckus at the hospital earlier that day and took the unusual step of phoning, but no one answered. In fact, since they discovered out, none of his children have spoken to Dad. It's a foregone conclusion that his mistress found out as well. My nephew wanted to visit his children, so he had his mother take him to the home where he lives with his wife and children. My nephew, it turns out, has been having questions about whether or not his daughter, the younger of the two children, is his. That evening, his quarrel with his wife deteriorated into a shouting brawl, prompting a neighbor to contact the authorities. We've now learnt that my nephew repeatedly asked his wife who the biological father of their kid is, and she eventually revealed that she doesn't know. His wife confesses to falling in love with and sleeping with his father in late 2016, only months after their kid was born. The child was born in December of 2017. My nephew hasn't yet faced his father in person, but he did get a letter over the weekend written to all three children, which they refused to read. My sister did open it, and her husband wrote, among other things, that he's deeply sorry for the insurmountable pain and misery, that he's far from perfect, that he understands that nothing he says or does will ever change the situation he's caused, and that they should never forget that he'll never stop loving them until the day he dies. The chutzpah of a guy who has spent decades hiding behind his beauty, money, and success, only to be reduced to a poor excuse for a human being. My nephew will be home for 3 weeks before returning to college, and he has subsequently enlisted the services of a lawyer in order to secure a court judgment establishing paternity. It's heartbreaking to see individuals I care about be devoured by misery and despair on an unparalleled scale. As if things weren't awful enough, my nephew has been drinking every day since his return last week.